Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Well, there's a one full of money, 2 of the show, 3 to the ready, now go, can't go, but don't you.
It's the WKing T11 karaoke machine from W-King. Yes, and I have been assured the W does not stand for Wayne, but it's simply for we are the kings, apparently. No, they didn't really tell me. I don't know why I said it. But we'll get on. So, it's the W-King T11. A lot of people said to me a lot of things, but one of the things a lot of people said to me was, ow, I said, what? They said, you liked the W-King T9, the T-Series, that to me sounds like a lot of tanks all in a row. And then they've been upgraded to the T11. Yes, the T-Series, the T9, the T11 sounds to me like a tank. I don't know why, but it always comes into my head. I don't know why they give these... I don't even know who W-King really are. Obviously, they're selling on other speakers and they're buying them in. They're not making their own speakers. And the thing is, if you go on their website, half the speakers that we talk about, not even on the website, and a lot of the speakers with names that we're talking about now have got the same name on other speakers. Yes, they're in a muddle. Yes, we don't know what they're doing. But hey ho, we do know what they're doing. They're making cheap budget speakers with a reasonable amount of value. W-King has always said, in my head, not said to me, in my head, you say W-King, and I'm immediately thinking, upper bass, yes, it's not very musical, but it sounds great in the playground, and the kids love it, and it goes, thump, 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 thump. Everybody's happy. Along comes the W-King T9. Well, it wasn't like that. Why wasn't it like that? Well, it didn't have that much bass. In fact, it had a balanced bass. I say it has. It had. It still has. It's not like somebody came and stole my bass overnight. So, yes, the W-King T9 does not follow the mold of every other W-King speaker I've had, because this is actually quite a detailed, delicate sound without overwhelming bass. So it's not an outdoor kind of speaker, and not a speaker for a party, but you can actually have a decent listen. Why don't you just put it on its side? I don't know, it makes absolutely no sense. Landscape mode, portrait mode. The point I've done that is because, unlike some of the Soundcore speakers, where it was fake, they've got a fake driver down the bottom, apparently just so it's got some more lights on. This is true left-right. So obviously not getting left-right in portrait mode. The tweeters are here. So it's not like you're getting wide stereo anyway, but the woofers are certainly left and right. And if you turn it that way, you get some semblance of stereo. Oh, Alan, you can't have drivers that close together and call it stereo. They're all mono, they all sound... Personally, I think you do hear... You don't hear a soundstage, but what you do get are little bits of timing differences that not only sound pleasant to your ears, that it makes it sound slightly bigger than it would. It makes it sound more pleasant. That slight timing difference to your ears will give us some semblance, if you've got the ears tuned to it, of separation. Not a soundstage, but a separation. And it just is, when you delay one channel over the other like that, it just, to me, is a more pleasant sound, a bigger sound. That's why buskers do this sort of thing of reverb and echo and stuff like that. That's why the Marshall Stockwell 2, a speaker I really, really love, doesn't get talked of enough at all anymore. Still a great speaker. What do they do? They've got loads of echo or reverb, and they're calling it pseudo stereo, but it just works as long as it's on the right type of speaker. So let's get on with it. This, I did the... because, yes, it's a karaoke speaker. Yes, you've got a mic stroke guitar button input on the back. If you're using guitar, you've got to turn reverb off. There is a separate thing for the reverb. Up, is it not? It's here. It's up and down, but you want to have it. I think it's echo. It's echo there, down, up, depending on how much echo you want. I think it's.
This is a maximum echo, but I can go down, 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 down. I've got almost no echo. A little bit, but yeah, it's not quite as much fun at a party unless you're smoking the right stuff. That's that. Right. So if you're going to use it as a guitar or any instrument that you can plug in, you're going to have to turn the echo off. Or you can turn your mic off. By the way, obviously, no phantom power. So dynamic microphones only. Unplug it. And of course, W-King, they give you all bells and whistles. So you can put a micro SD in there and you can play music straight off the device itself. You actually got 2 USBs,
one which not only can you use a micro SD, you could use a dongle. You can have all your music on a dongle. You plug it in, you could do it that way. And there's another USB here. Do you know what you could do with that? You can use it as a power bank. Got a reset button. And yes, no USB-C charging. It's a barrel charger. You can like it or lump it on there. But you do have bells and whistles. And as you saw, you've even got lights. You can turn your lights on and off. You can do it all on the device itself. And you can control your music and you control the volume. And if you want to max out the volume, you need to always do that. Certainly on mine, it wasn't maxed out. So you have the ability to adjust volume separately on your device and on here. I know a lot of people do like that. You said to me it's like it's the big brother to the W-King T9. You like the T9, you're going to love the T11. But the first thing that you're going to do, well, let me check my notes. Is there anything else that I've forgotten to say? There always is. Anything that we'll not get to later. Just say it's 100 watts. How are they measuring it? What they made? Blah blah blah. I'm just giving the headlines because it's absolutely meaningless these days. Most of these specs, you do get 2 modes. You get the normal default bass heavy mode, and then the so-called outdoor, which is the treble mode, where you hit one of these buttons twice. Off the top of my head, I forgot. If you read the manual, you'll know. I think it's the play button. I can't remember off the top of my head. This is why I'm not a professional reviewer. Now, here's the catch. Even when if you go on Amazon to buy it, it will tell you update. This is the problem with W-King. Why there's no app for W-King, and I'm not a fan of these when you're using the media tool that actions media tool that you have to use for these updates. There's lots of issues involved. I won't get into that now. However, you will have to do that with W-King each and every time. But the thing is, they are yes, great, well done. You're continually improving the firmware, but none of us know what the hell firmware we had to start with. They are telling us this time to update. The latest one when I did this video was 2.36. So I have updated it as they're making singing dances. Before you come on and say, oh, naughty boy, you didn't do it for the U-Boom, hell, I was in touch with U-Boom before I did that video, and they insisted the firmware as it came was almost the same as the other, and they didn't want me to update the firmware. They said they would send it to me, the new one, when the new firmware became the production model. They never did, because, I don't know, maybe someone else said you shouldn't send that key to the speakers or whatever. They promised it to me, they didn't send it to me, and by the way, I had quite a long gap, it was 2.5 months. Everybody has stopped contacting me. Not that it matters, just to let you know how fickle all these companies are, all of them, even the one you said I work for, Soundcore, you're not making videos, they don't want to know you. It's that cutthroat out there. Thank God, it doesn't really matter that much to me. It's just nice when you get speakers before they've actually gone to market and you think you've actually done some sort of good. So I've updated it to firmware 2.36. You want to know, well, does it make that much difference? Do you know what I did? Never done this before. I recorded it before and after. I'm going to play, am I going to play that video? With me notes. Yes, it's been a long time since I remembered how I go through my notes. Oh yes, here we are. Update, yeah, video 1, update firmware to 2.36 for the video sound compare. Let's see the difference.
I'm blinded by your light. 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 Oh la 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 la, eh eh. Oh la 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 la, eh eh. Oh la 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 la, eh eh. Oh la 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 la
So this is a question. There's no doubt there's a big difference between the default firmware it came with and updating to 2.36. We've now got an extended, deeper bass. It's not a subwoofer, but it is certainly deeper and more extended. We've got less of the upper bass, thump, 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 which a lot of you like, and there's other adjustments along the frequency response, which will bring out more of the bass. So some of those peaks have gone, and there's more bass involved. Basically, they've reduced the mid and upper bass. I'm just reading my notes. I'm not cheating. I wrote the notes, so it's not really cheating. They've reduced the mid and upper bass and extended the bass between 50 and 70 hertz. They smoothed out the 1 to 2 kilohertz meter peak, blah, blah, blah. That's what I said. So the question is, what, if you want to change it that much, why did it come out with a different firmware? When you're going to change it that much, it reminds me of one of the last ones I did before I went on holiday, blah, blah, blah. Did you really get on holiday? No, it doesn't really matter. The Wild Rod, the Me for Wild Rod, completely different from the firmware it was, which wasn't, and it'd been on market a long time before they decided to update the firmware. Do they not listen to these speakers? I don't think they even do their own tuning. I think it's the people they buy it from do the tuning, or at least do the embedding of the tuning into the firmware. I don't know exactly what their workflow is, because obviously they're really marketing companies that don't really make their own speakers, despite what most of them actually say. It's one of the reasons why they can do them cheaper. They're not doing their own research and development. Like we knock, you knock, okay, I knock. Things like the JBL extremely priced 3. But JBL, of course, and a lot of other brands are very, very expensive. But one thing they're doing that these sort of companies are not doing, is putting a lot of money into the research and development. They're doing market testing. They're doing a bit more in-house, is what I'm trying to say. Does it matter at the end of the day? You just want a speaker that sounds good and pay as little as possible. But somebody has to do the market, so has to do the tuning and the research and development. So it's made a big difference. Let me show you now where we are with the frequency response.
T11 before the update, T11 after the update. So we can see upper bass has been reduced and the deeper bass has been extended. If we overlay, get a better look, we can see there's a lot now shaved from upper bass, all the way from 70 hertz all the way up to just past 500 hertz. That's all been reduced to allow for a bit more of an extended bass and a deeper bass. The peak, 1 kilohertz to 1.5 kilohertz, has also been reduced. That's going to help it sound a little bit more bass heavy. And there's the big difference. The update is all about extending into and hearing a deeper bass. Just a quick look. We've got 2 modes, default mode in blue and the outdoor mode, what they're calling Treble EQ, in red. And indeed, Treble EQ drops the bass 200 hertz below, and then 500 hertz and above, you're getting more in the mids and the highs.
So I showed you the EQ modes. It actually comes with so-called indoor-outdoor or default versus treble modes, and I will let you have a listen to those modes. So treble mode, what does it do? It does what it says on the box. You get more treble, but you also get less bass. No surprise there, because there's only a finite amount of power they can put out. If you put the more you put into the bass, the less you can have on the mids and the highs. So they've taken off the bass, so they're going to have more in the mids and highs. It's going to go louder. Right, on the table we've got the WKing T11. W does not stand for Wayne, and the WKing T9. Two of the popular tanks from WKing. No secret, I really like that. I still really like what it does, the WKing T9. Let's compare the two of them and see if this WKing T11 has thrashed the WKing T9.
Cuando nos miramos podemos sentir todo lo que no nos pudimos decir. ¿Pa' qué te fuiste? ¿Pa' qué? 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 Ya, dime si valió la pena haberte ido pa' vivir esta condena. Recuerdo cuando te cantaba a capela, haciéndote mía bajo la luna llena. Y ahora que tú y yo ya no somos nada, pienso que todo se podía arreglar. Pero es inevitable que en la vida todo cambie, aunque no duela de más. Porque me acordé cuando estabas pa' mí. Tú eras mi Baldwin y tú eras tu JB. Cuando nos miramos podemos sentir todo lo que no nos pudimos decir. ¿Pa' qué te fuiste? ¿Pa' qué? 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 ¿Pa' qué?
So very different sounding, and it's not a case of one is better than the other. If I had to listen to one, I would prefer the W-King T9. But yes, in terms of bass, W-King T11 makes the T9 look silly. But they are very different sound. Don't forget, this is a lot bigger anyway. So it's bigger, it's heavier. Is it heavier? What are the weights? I'm going to tell you what the weights are. Just 3.7 kilos versus 5.1. So big difference in size, big difference in weight. And one of the bass lovers will say this is a big improvement. They really are very different speakers. You can hear little nuances in the track on the T9. It's not an overblown bass. It's a little bit bass-like, but overall it's quite well balanced if you want a balanced sound, but you will not get a satisfying bass, but you will get some bass. But clearly, that's a more detailed sound, a sparky sound. This is a thick, kind of muddy against the T9, but with a big, full bass. So it's going to be depending on what you want to listen to, but very different. For very different people, I prefer the T9, but I'm not going to take it out and have a party with it. This is clearly a party speaker, and it's got some great features on it. So let's get serious. What we're going to do? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a clue right now. Going to compare it to, for me, pound for pound world champion right now in terms of value. Obviously, everybody will have a different opinion. For me, for my wants, as an indoor speaker, the best value at the moment, I think it's around £170 or $165. Yes, it should be $200 on that, but no, we get slagged. We don't get slagged. We get taken for mugs in the UK in terms of the pricing. Cheaper in dollars than it is in pounds, around £170. So, also the JBL Boombox 3. Both are bass heavy, so I'm going to do this in their bass modes. Obviously only one mode, but there is EQ, but I'm doing it in default mode for the Boombox 3. I'm going to do this in X-Bass mode, which is the bass heavy mode, because that's all this one does. At the end of the day, you can argue and say, oh, it sounds fantastic, it's got the greatest highs and the vocals. It's a bass speaker, it's a bass heavy speaker, it's got a lot of punch, and it's got a bit more deep bass than it used to have. But is it a great speaker? Well, let's have a listen. I did compare it against the T9 in landscape mode, because that's how I use the T9, and that was a fairer comparison. However, I think for most of you, you're going to use it in portrait mode. And of course, these are in landscape mode. Well, you could do that, but I'm not suggesting you might likely do that. So I'm going to do this how they sit on the table, and that's how I think you will listen to them. So let's have a listen first of all against the Blast in X-Bass mode. Remember.
Cool water, got no room for drama. Don't do
So actually, in terms of the actual bass, they measure quite similar. But because there is more upper bass on the T11, it's masking some of that deeper bass. So you get a sense of more deep bass on the Blast in its X bass mode. The T11 is stronger in terms of 2.5 to 4.5 kilohertz, which to you is basically upper mids. The Blast in its X bass mode, we know we've got a 5.5 kilohertz dip, which it's playing havoc with the tuning and with if you wanted to use your own tuning. However, it's compared to the T11, it's stronger or brighter from 6 kilohertz and up, which is your highs, your brilliance, your harmonics, and those are the main differences. So in practice, they do sound quite different, even though some of them, the bass, in terms of the bass, they are quite similar. I prefer the balance of the X bass mode. Well, I wouldn't use, personally I use my custom, but I would still prefer X bass mode over the default mode of the T11. You may be different. I'm a deep bass fan rather than an upper bass fan. And while there is some deep bass on this, not true deep bass, but in terms of what these speakers normally deliver, there's some deep bass, it's overpowered by, still, even after the firmware update, by the amount of upper bass there is. And there isn't enough detail here. There isn't enough sparkle, which I can get detail out of the Stormbox. But if I was going outside, I would take the T11. It's a whole different ballgame. But for indoor and some all-round listening, definitely the Blast. What about against the very, 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 very pricey Boombox 3? When I say pricey, I'm not talking by a couple of quid, am I? I'm talking £500, $500, or about $450 you can get it for in the UK, against the W-King T11, about 160 quid, $200. So less than half the price. What happens then?
Not falling, not falling. So when I bet it's so wanted, I wanted you. I'm on cloud nine and I'm just floating, I'm floating, I'm floating. Just to feel something with you, but I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. Get drunk and you call it. I'm right where you want me. You know what to say. Yeah. 1 minute I'm flying, the next I'm crying. Yeah, I still wanna stay. Yeah, you got so many secrets, but who will I keep them? You're not mine anymore. Oh no, but if your heart is open, I'll be the first to close it. Why do I answer your call? I'm upset, but I ain't falling, not falling, not falling. So when I bet it's so wanted, I wanted you. I'm on cloud nine and I'm just floating, I'm floating, I'm floating. Just to feel something with you, but I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again.
So they do sound very, very different. The Boombox 3, with its mids push, there is a 700, around the 700 hertz. There is a big push, which will require track match. With some tracks, it's going to flatter it, and with some other tracks, it's going to sound awful, depending on your ears and what you want. However, this has got deeper bass, it's got more rumble than the T11. It's more open, and it's a brighter sound. They sound very, very different. I prefer the sound of the Boombox 3, even though I have issues with the mids push, which you don't get on the Boombox 2, and you get about the same amount of bass. So you're going to know, you need to, if you're choosing between the Boombox 3 and the Boombox 2, you need to know what your tastes are. It's not that one is better than the other, just the tuning is a bit different. Yes, I know we've got the so-called subwoofer, which isn't a subwoofer. I've demonstrated that before. So we've got a big woofer for the lower mid, for the mid bass. It's doing some deep bass. It's not doing subwoofer bass. That's not a subwoofer. That means it'd be playing from like 80 hertz down. It's not, or 50 hertz down, depending on where you think a crossover should be. Blah blah blah. So, and then we've got two smaller mids, which are on top of the tweeters. So we've got tweeters on there as well, but we've got the extra two smaller mids. It's an interesting design, but really, doesn't add up to much of improvement. The real difference between that and the two is a tiny bit more bass, but the tuning, that mids, like lower mids push. Well, I'm trying to tell you about against T11. So it's very, very different. The T11 is punchy, it's a bit more muddy, it's more closed in, it's less fizzy. It's not pleasant. But then it's less than half the price. And so, of course, you could have two, and that's a whole different ballgame. I've only got one. And I should say, they did send it to me. They sent it to me 3 months ago. I never did the video, and they never asked me why. But I'm doing it now. I've got a little bit of time for this one video. I don't know when I'll do the next video. But anyway, even saying that's got more deep bass, this has got a lot more mid bass. As I said, this is mid bass, upper bass heavy, with just enough deep bass that you want to get some sense of it, but you won't get the rumble. You get the rumble with the Boombox 3. That's what the Boombox series give you. It gives you some rumble. That's what you get from the deep bass, and you won't get from mid or upper bass. Really said, it lacks any real detail, and it's not. It's quite subdued in its sound, like 6 kilohertz and above. You're just not getting any sparkle or detail, but that's not what this speaker's about. It's a party speaker for upper bass, really. We've got these two here, compared them before, but we might as well do it. Let's just give you a quick sound. The Tribit Stormbox Blast versus the JBL Boombox 3.
Not falling, not falling. So when I bet it's so wanting, I'm wanting you. I'm on cloud nine and I'm just floating, I'm floating, I'm floating. Just to feel something with you, but I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. Get drunk and you call it. I'm right where you want me. You know what to say. Yeah. 1 minute I'm flying, the next I'm crying. Yeah, I still wanna stay. Yeah, you got so many secrets, but who will I keep them in my mind anymore? Oh no, but if your heart is open, I'll be the first to close it. Why do I answer your call? I'm upset, but I can't fall in. Not falling, not falling. So when I bet it's so wanting, I'm wanting you. I'm on cloud nine and I'm just floating, I'm floating, I'm floating. Just to feel something with you, but I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again. I can't do this again. I can't do this again and again and again.
So again, Tribit Stormbox Blast, about a third of the price. Well, I forgot these. About a third of the price of the Boombox 3, and you've got to remember the price differences when we're comparing these speakers. For the money that the JBL Boombox 3 is charging, I think it should be better than it is. However, it's giving us something in this form factor and size we're not really getting elsewhere, and that's true deep bass. When I say true, I'm not talking subwoofer with a 12-inch woofer or a 12-inch driver or whatever, but we're talking enough deep bass where you get get it in your tummy and you get that satisfying rumble. You won't get that from the Tribit Stormbox Blast, but it can do reasonably deep bass, but more than 50 hertz rather than the 40 hertz, and they sound quite different. However, it does take careful matching with that 700 hertz push. I found the Stormbox Blast to be very EQable using their own EQ in their own app, and I can get it just the way I like it, even though it's got that 5.5 kilohertz dip. And I just think the balance is more suited for all-round listening, whereas this is still a party-pleasing speaker. You can do more serious listening on it than you can do on the T11, but it's not really meant for that. This is meant for going outdoors and still getting some sense of that bass, but you're missing the upper bass. It might not go that loud outdoors. The other problem I have is, for me, there's a hollow nature in the sound of the Boombox 3. Even though it's got a mids push, it still can't get away. There is something not right about it if I'm doing not serious listening, but less than just having a party and having 20 lagers beforehand. Whereas I'm not really, when you're doing these A-Bs, you're picking out what in a 5-minute listen, which is not the real world listening, let's face it, and you'll pick out things, I don't like that. But on a longer listen and living with it from day to day, I much prefer the balance of the Blast. And as I said, I've got a problem with the mids push and the hollow nature. but I won't really get this satisfying deep bass from something in this form factor and with that size battery. Yes, I know Harman Kardon do lots of deep bass speakers, but they rip you off with the batteries to protect the cells of the JBL. So I think, where have we got to? We got to the guts of the whole thing. I'm saying it's a party speaker, and therefore it needs to do one thing. It needs to go loud. And so all of these in their default modes, obviously there's other modes on the Stormbox Blast, and you can do EQ, of course, in here. And it's got an outdoor mode. Yes, it'll go louder. But why you're buying these speakers is obviously because you want some bass. It's not because you want to cut all the bass and go to the trebles and the outdoor modes. So let's get serious. Let's not bother with all that nonsense. Let's just do them in their bass-heavy modes. Then, maximum volume. You've had a row with a neighbour, you want to annoy them, you've got it right by their door. Which one will go the loudest? And of course, why that matters is bass will travel more than those highs. And that's why people downstairs, they're going to hear, it's the bass that annoys them rather than mids and highs, because it's the bass that travels. Long waves. It's a low frequency. See, you missed physics at school. Obviously, bass, we're talking like, well, technically 300 hertz. For me, satisfying bass is 100 hertz and down. Hertz is the frequency, it's the wave, and that means it's a long wave. The waves get shorter, but more frequent as you go up. Blah, blah, blah. You've got no interest in that, have you? All right, maximum volume.
To the fat lady sings, I owe you a trip, cause me and you, we got a thing. My sunshine state, hair curly like a string. Just a big ol' ooh, smile, that's about all you gotta bring. So enjoy the ride, got some pillows in the Chevy. It's like a darling, loaded and heavy. Take your time, let me know when you're ready. Couple months, I've been messing with you steady. Open for plans tonight. Lost in the afterglow. Oh, girl, your love for me keeps calling me, so I'm calling you. Lord, give me life to find. I long for your company. Oh, girl, your love for me is a part of me, my biology. Самолет несет меня, будто в кулаке зажав великан. В иллюминаторе земля. Самолет несет меня, большой стальной великан. В иллюминаторе земля. Open for plans tonight, lost in the afterglow. Oh, girl, your love for me keeps calling me, so I'm calling you. Lord, give me life to find. I long for your company. Oh, girl, your love for me is a part of me, my biology.
Maximum volume, the big loser is the Stormbox. It can't compete in terms of volume with the other two speakers. And by far the biggest bass now is the T11. We can see that the mids peak is there, which gives a stronger peak measurement for the JBL Boombox 3, 450 to 1 kilohertz. But then the T11 is dominating the bass until you hit to just under the 60 hertz mark, where, yeah, that deeper bass of the Boombox 3 is still there. But overall, more balanced sound from the T11. The Blast, some 2 decibels down in terms of overall loudness on the T11, and nearly 3 decibels down in terms of the peak.
Dum 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 dum. So we got there in the end. Why would you buy the W-King T11? Well, so you can do a bit of karaoke with it, which you've already demonstrated. Should I do it again? No, I've embarrassed myself enough. You can do karaoke, but hey, you can do something else. You can get more satisfying bass. Look, that goes a bit louder if you put the main lead in. I'm all about portable speakers. All the speakers I'm doing are portable. If you really want to go portable, this is actually goes louder. Goes louder for about a third to half the price, isn't it? A lot cheaper. And we're talking proper loud, around 110 decibels peak. That's proper loud. You wouldn't want to be, if you sat next to this at 110 decibels, next year you probably won't have much hearing lift. That's loud. Yes, we're like 3-4 decibels down on the Tribit Stormbox Blast, but remember, it's in its default mode. And it does. I just think it does enough for me to be a winner. But if I wanted to go, if I'm having an outdoor party and I wanted to go loud, that's certainly the best value on this table. For me, that would be the only reason I'd buy. Be one of the reasons. The other reason would be because I want to do karaoke and I want to have echo and I want to be able to adjust it from the speaker itself. But for the money, you'd be disappointed outdoors and you try and impress your mate. One brings the T11 and one brings the Boombox 3. Cost me 500 quid, right? And so I'm going to go much louder than your 160, whatever it is, for the W-King. Oh no, you're going to get embarrassed. All over. It's got a little bit more deep bass, but it's got so much more bass, you're not really going to get a sense of that. It goes louder. Yes, technically in peaks. You know why in peak it is louder? It's because peak is instantaneous volume. So where the track actually flatters the mids and it's got that big peak, 700 hertz, you're going to get a bigger peak. I prefer, if you want to know what true loudness is, you want the whole track. You want LUFS. That's LUFS being perceived loudness. So we've done the compare. What else shall I tell you? I'll just give you the quick specs. You'll never guess where they're made. They're made in China. And of course, we talked about the price, 120 quid for the T9. Well, the T9 is a completely different speaker. It's not bass heavy at all. So I'm not going to go over that. But what I'm going to say is the Blast, in UK terms, £170, Boombox 3. Honestly, on the JBL site, it's still 500 quid. I mean, that's lunacy. I know they need to get their money back. And hey, if we charge it, they'll pay it. So fair enough. Who am I to sit here with, yes, 22,000 subscribers is a lot, but come on, against Flossie Carter, I'm not this little flea that he does that with. But in my opinion, they take the piss a little bit. And the T11 about the same as, actually, in the UK, cheaper than the Blast. Although in the USA, it would be the other way around. There are more than 2 countries, I know that. But by the way, my stats say most viewers are from America.
Can you see by the dawn's early light?
Seems like people, even in the UK, they're not that fussed about me. But anyway, in terms of the battery, now this is the interesting bit. We're saying, oh, that's what goes loud as goes outdoors. But really, it's a disappointing battery for me, given how loud it goes, because it's 56.2 watt hours compared to 70 watt hours. So you've got to take that into consideration. I haven't tested the actual battery life, but my guess, even though it's got deep bass, overall it doesn't go as loud. My guess is you're going to get significantly more out in terms of battery, but you'll let me know in the comments if you've got the T11, how much battery life you get out of it, depending obviously on what tracks you play and what volume you play, but the battery's not good. And then the Stormbox Blast, 71 watt hours. It's a much better battery, 71 watt hours versus, there's another reason why I like the Blast. It's a proper battery. It shows you what you can do if you really want to, versus 56 for that kind of speaker. For me, it's probably on par, but they could have done better. They could have done better. Of course, they're all SBC. They're all Bluetooth 5.3. They all do true wireless stereo pairing. You need a mains lead for the Stormbox Blast, and it's barrel charging for the. Is it barrel charging on the Boombox 3, or is it a mains lead as well? There's mains lead as well on the Boombox 3. It's barrel charger, the proprietary barrel charger on the T11. They've all got all these auxiliary inputs. Woohoo! They can all be used as a power bank. Only the T11 on the table now can actually play music straight off a flash card on the device itself. Boombox 3 has no lights, 500 quid, no lights. Don't tell me it's because audiophiles don't like lights. Audiophiles are not buying the speaker. People who call themselves audiophiles might be buying the speaker, but they're not. Well, look, audiophile can mean whatever you want. In my world, they're not audiophiles. They are snobs. Official specs: 90 watts for the Blast, 100 watts for the T11, and let's snigger, laugh, and say ha ha ha. They're saying 136 watts on battery, 180 watts for mains, but that's their. I don't know how they get that figure. It's not. It really isn't. That I think is 80 watts, like it is on the Boombox 2. But they try to make you add up the drivers and what they're doing. It's misleading. It's not good. 5.4 kilos for the Blast, 6.7 for the Boombox 3, and 5.1 for the T11. The Stormbox Blast will float. It is IPX7, and it will float with the drivers up. Woohoo! And some of you say, well, if you leave it long enough, it goes the other way around. Mine does float. Honestly, the Boombox 3 will float, but not with the drivers up. and it's additionally not just IP, not just waterproof 1 meter, 30 minutes. It's also dustproof. They've all got tweeters. They're all pretty decent for the input on the auxiliary side, between 0 and 20 milliseconds, which is almost not noticeable, but or 20. If you're actually DJing, that may not be. If you are DJing, for me, I got no lag on the Boombox 3 or the T11. But in terms of YouTube, then it's 160 milliseconds. It's not good. Come on, that's not good. T11, 100 milliseconds, 80 milliseconds is my cutoff point. You just about get away with it on the Blast, but that's on Android. On my Samsung 10 Plus, I think it is 10 Plus. Yeah. So remember, very, very device and user scenario specific. There is an app for the Tribit Stormbox Blast, and you can customize the EQ. There is no app for WKing. You will need to do the firmware via the media tool, and it's required even on Amazon. It says update if you want bass. Why did they not think about it when they brought it to market? I just don't know. It's because they're marketing people. They are not audio geezers. And the JBL Boombox 3 has an app, and it's only a 3-band. It's a joke. It's not a proper equalizer. It's an algorithm-driven balancer, but hey-ho, it can make a difference, 80% and down, but it's not a game changer. Would I done it? I did a video. I don't know when I'll do the next one, but hey-ho, it's nice to dip my toes back in the water. Wait for all the comments. You don't know what you're doing, and I'm going back on Olive's channel, blah, 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 and he was right all along. Well, that's fantastic. Oh, look, he must be back because he's waffled. It's brilliant. He's back to doing what I do. I waffle. You don't like it? I'm not going to say don't watch. I want people to watch. It'd be a bit stupid if there's literally nobody watching. I know some people have still been nice and have been consistently nice. Some people are quite fickle. And I know I've watched who you are. So I do feel a bit let down when I see them. Never mind, I won't get into that. It's not a therapy session, is it? So thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. And I'm sure if you didn't, you're going to let me know about that. And it's all part of the fun. Thank you for watching.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.